What I'm interested in is how we work together as a community, as a society, to achieve our most ambitious collective goals. How are we going to create the next wonders of the world? It's not going to be a single individual, in their closet inventing the future. That these things are increasingly going to require teams, organizations, just groups of people working together. And so any group that comes together is faced with a really, really important question, which is how are we going to organize and coordinate ourselves to do this? But one thing that's, I think, the pandemic has accentuated is how more and more of these collaborations are getting mediated by computation, that all of that collaboration is happening through a channel where some technology is influencing, or at the very least providing the window between which we can communicate with each other. If teams are working together online, could you sort of do rapid self-experimentation? Could you play around with different structures and help teams converge on one that works well for you? Let's imagine that there's a team of Mark, Asan, and myself. We start collaborating. We're doing something, and I'm just going to use solving some hard puzzle together. And as we go, every once in a while, we're giving feedback to the system of how well we think the team is doing. And based on that feedback, the system is going to actually suggest, in sometimes cheeky and sometimes sort of weird ways, it's by the way, I know this sounds silly, but try being really, really positive for the next bit. Beginning, a team might start out with nothing. We just start working together. And then based on the feedback, the system might suggest a change, oh, by the way, try being explicitly very decentralized in how you make decisions. And again, as we give feedback, the system is nudging these structures around until over time we adapt toward a set of structures that work quite well for us. What we found was a much larger effect than I was expecting, which was that these teams using the Dream Team system were outperforming all of the other conditions on the order of 40%. Right? So team viability is this construct that I think needs to get a lot more attention in the organization's literature. It's basically how much a team would be willing to continue to work together. My claim here is that viability is super important and underemphasized, because highly performant teams can be toxic and they can fracture. There's a lot of questions that we were thinking about around did it have to end that way? We've all sort of been on a team or in a group project where at the end of it, it was oh man, I really don't want to work with them again. You get one shot at it, right? IRL, in real life, as a team completes its forming and its storming stages, these stages I referenced from Tuckman earlier, its dynamics sort of settle in, this is how we're going to interact with each other. So this entire effort is basically around this question of whether computation could allow us to reconsider that constraint, right? Could we meet twice for the first time? The big idea behind this is that when you're remote, you can pull some interesting collaboration concepts that wouldn't be possible in person. What we're going to do is have a system that's going to make me think my name is one thing and everyone else think my name is something else. So you see yourself as Rapid Horse, right? So I see myself saying, hey, I'm Rapid Horse. Hi there, little snake. So you see me as John T. Pony, but you see me referring to your own name. And I say, hey, John T. Pony, because I see you as John T. Pony. It gets translated back that I think you're a little snake, and you say, hey, Rapid Horse. And I say, what are your ideas? And then the name gets changed. Okay, so that's what happens in round one. In round two, you still see yourself as Rapid Horse, but now everyone else sees you by a different name. And likewise, they still see themselves as Bright Frog, but everyone else sees them as a different name. The effect of this is that it always looks like you're having the same name round after round after round after round. I'm still Rapid Horse, and everyone around me is changing, which makes me think that every team I'm dealing with is actually a new team. When in reality, it's your name that's changing. So we have a masked and an unmasked condition. And we're measuring what percentage of the time they are consistent in their fracture outcomes. So if they wanted to stay together one time and they didn't the other time, that's inconsistent. So when you're unmasked, people are pretty consistent because you get back together and you're like, oh, these ones again. And so if you liked them, you like them again. If you didn't like them, you didn't like them again. They're masked in the creative task. It was a coin flip. Half the time, people changed their fracture outcome. So it's as if it was an entirely new team, which really stunned us. Can we identify, the top 10%, the teams that are really doing well, or the bottom 10%, the teams that are really problematic? And what we find is that there's about a 0.92 AUC at identifying the top 10% of teams. So if we could just like help the teams start off on the right foot. So there's a lot of implications and risks here. Like, when should and shouldn't we be able to start over, right? What if someone gets harassed? Should we just be able to like bring people back with like the same team with their harasser without them knowing it? That seems extremely problematic.